In this video I'm going to show you how to remove the intake manifold from this Mazda 2 and replace the gaskets. First step, let's remove the air filter housing and the computer of the car. Now from this point we gotta remove everything around the intake manifold, including the throttle body, all the vacuum lines around it, the injectors and all the sensors that might be connected on the intake manifold. So if you look down there, you're gonna see a 10mm bolt. This is gonna be for the hose clamp, which holds this intake hose. This vacuum line and this solenoid is for the evaporative system. So let's unplug it from the intake manifold. Let's see. Here it comes. Now this small intake hose together with the evap solenoid will come out, and you can leave it apart like that. Take these vacuum lines, put them aside. Now if you look down here, you can see the connector for the starter. So we're gonna unplug this and then we can take this aside. Okay, so you can release this tab from above. From here you press it this way and then you pull it out. Okay, let's remove these clips. You just need a small plier like this, press on it and it will come out nice and easy. And then you've got one more here. Now let's unplug this connector. This will go to the solenoid, which will open and close the intake runners. So in order to remove some connectors, you definitely need this pick. Okay, so next we've got the throttle body, which is water cooled. So we're not going to remove the coolant hoses because it's not necessary, so we can disconnect it from here and set it apart. You're going to need a 10mm. You're going to need a 10mm and a small extension. Now next to the throttle body you've got the AGR valve hose. This is a metal hose which connects right here. So again with a 10mm, let's remove it. So you might be prepared as well with the gasket for this AGR valve connection. These bolts were very tight considering that they are tightened in a plastic, not in a metal. Now because the AGR valve hose doesn't want to move a little bit more from here, I will have to disconnect it from the transmission. There is a bracket on the transmission right there. Here it comes. And now the AGR valve moves a lot more, as you can see. It's actually not enough. Now since this AGR valve hose or pipe doesn't want to come out properly from here and it's made of metal, I don't want to bend it, and therefore I'll have to completely remove it from here. So it's connected right here on the AGR valve. You're gonna need a 22mm wrench and remove this nut. Okay, so here it comes. Now you can see the hose is completely out from here. So it gives me access to the intake manifold. Now let's move on this side where the alternator is, and we'll have to remove this brake booster vacuum line which goes around there to the brake booster. I've got this special hose clamp removal tool which will make your life a lot easier. It's a great investment. It's quite inexpensive comparing to the job it does. So now let's take out this bracket from here. You're gonna need a 14mm. Down here we've got the connector for the manifold absolute pressure sensor. Let's unplug it from here. The map sensor is connected to the intake manifold through this little vacuum line. And among the last things to remove are the injectors. And then on the bottom here we've got some more clips which connect various vacuum lines and hoses. Okay, so the first step is to unplug the connectors. Again, using this pick will make your job a lot easier. If you have a closer look, you can see the fuel line on top here. Usually you need a special tool, but with this pick, again, you can press on these pins. Okay, you just do this movement in there, pull the line, and do the same on the other side. And here it comes. Of course, expect some fuel to come out. Fuel line is disconnected. Now we're gonna need a 12mm socket, and we've got two big bolts here. Okay, and the injectors together with the fuel rail will come out. Take care of these injectors, put them in a clean space. Okay, so let's keep this fuel rail in a clean place. Make sure that there are no debris going inside, because that might clog up the injectors. So the final step is to take a 12mm socket and a long extension. One here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just break them loose first. So let's take out the bolts all the way. So all the time when you remove a bolt, the most reliable thing to do is to put your finger in there and you take out the bolt like that. And on the bottom here, you've got one more. Okay, so down here we've got one more vacuum line. So this is what I did. I took the lockable plier and grab it around the vacuum hose, and then you pry it out like that. Let's take this as well. Okay, so to save this little plastic clip from here, this is the movement I did. You put your hand under here, and with this plier in an angle like that, you can press on the clip and take it out. It's very important to not mess too much with the wiring harnesses, because you can create a short circuit if you, for example, you pinch them by mistake or something like that. So you gotta be extra careful in order to do this job properly. Next, there is a bracket right there, and I'm gonna use this Phillips torque bit. The bracket is disconnected, bolt is out, and let's see now. We've got another bracket which holds another vacuum line. So these are the screws which holds these vacuum line brackets on the intake. On the other side, and there's just a regular plastic clip here. So here it comes, the intake manifold is out. Now a couple of things you can do before replacing the gaskets is to inspect the runners. They should be in good condition. All of them should be in the same position. Obviously there shouldn't be so much oil in here. Then you can go ahead and test the solenoid. So I'm going to remove it from here. And here it is. Now you can inspect and see how the flap moves. They should move very easy without any problems. Obviously it shouldn't be any carbon buildup in here or gunk of oil or stuff like that. So everything looks good, it just needs some cleaning. Next, you can do a simple test on this intake runner actuator. There is a little plastic wheel there which will spin once you apply 12 volts to these two pins. So let's see. Okay, so it does move. Now I'm going to reverse the polarity, and the motor should be able to open and close those intake runners. Okay, make sure that you don't make a short circuit in here. So let's see. And as you can see, the motor works both ways. Now one general rule about all the gaskets, they have to rise up compared to the surface where they sit. So in that way you will know that they will seal with the second surface, which is going to be the engine head. And therefore if the gasket is, for example, flat and melted on this surface, then you definitely need to replace this gasket. And as you can see down here, on most of the surface the gasket rises above, but right on this point here, okay, the gasket sits actually lower than the surface, this plastic surface. So right here you're gonna find a vacuum leak. Very easy, you can get a vacuum leak because this surface is not gonna be sealed. Like for example here, I'm sliding on the gasket and you cannot hear the sound. Okay, but here it's a lot more grinding noise. We have to remove and replace these gaskets because there is a vacuum leak here. So from this point, if you want to really be cheap, you can take some gasket maker and apply on the already existing gasket, the old one. Just make sure that you clean up the surface very well from oil so the new gasket maker can stick on it. So that's how you can actually fix a vacuum leak for very cheap. But in my situation, I'm gonna put the new gaskets on, and that should fix the problem. Now, before installing the intake manifold, make sure that you finish any other jobs you want to do here. Like for example, you get easier access to the alternator, then you get easier access to the thermostat down here, easier access to the starter. So make sure that you plan in advance and do all the jobs you want to do or you have to do in this car. Okay, so now it's time to install the intake manifold. I'm going to reconnect the vacuum hoses here. Hopefully we can manage. Okay, so once you lubricate the hose, it will go easy in and connect all these brackets back. Now the best is to snug first the bolts by hand, so tighten by hand as much as you can, and then you can torque them in sequence. You've got 6 bolts. First go with 10 foot-pounds, which is going to be around 15 Newton meters. It doesn't really matter, just it has to be lower than the last spec. So I'm going to go with around 15 Newton meters. Right, and the final torque spec is 25 Newton meters, which is going to be around 19 foot-pounds. Now if you remember, there was a bracket here. Let's reconnect this vacuum line, map sensor. Okay, so that's how you remove and replace the intake manifold gasket from this Mazda 2. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you are new to this channel, click that subscribe button as well. It's free for you and it will motivate me to make a lot more videos for you guys in the future. So until next time, drive safe so I can see you in the next video.